and welcome to Encore. We begin today's show with an iconic French writer whose work is as intimate as it is political. For decades, Annie Ernaux has written fearlessly about sex, abortion, and illness, laying bare herself and society in the process. It's a courage that earned her the Nobel Prize for Literature last October. France 24's Fatimata Wane has been speaking to Ernaux at the Taormina Book Festival in Sicily, where she was among the recipients of the Taobuk Award.
Annie Ernaux, thank you for being with us on France 24.
Thank you for having me.
How have you been since winning the Nobel Prize in Literature? What's changed?
Like
I've said before, it's a bit like a bomb. It scattered my life like a cluster bomb. That is to say, I'm scattered through travel, through interviews, and I no longer have time to write. And I barely have time to read, which normally keeps me very busy. So I think it's time for me to go home.
You have often said in the past that in France, you are not forgiven for being a woman and for being left-wing. Has the situation changed?
Not really, as has been seen over the past year in my case. Though, I must be fair. Many people were actually delighted to see a woman.
I can confirm that.
There you go. A woman with left-wing convictions received the Nobel Prize. There's this comment which I found really moving and admirable, which is that it's as if we as women, as workers, teachers, we won the Nobel Prize. So that feeling stayed with me. But when you look at things closely, you realize that there's still a clear advantage for being a male writer.
Between these two labels, woman and left-wing, which one has been the heaviest to bear?
I'd say that it's really been both together. My first book to be published was called Cleaned Out. It was a really violent expression against illegal abortion, which women were condemned to at the time. It was before the Simone Veil law that legalized abortion. Indeed, it was very political then, but I don't see why now I'm being criticized almost 50 years later.
In your book, Simple Passion, you were criticized for speaking freely about yourself as a woman in love, about your sexuality. And in Happening, you were criticized for speaking about your abortion and so on. Ultimately for you, is intimacy the most political thing there is?
I think so, because it brings to light how the person in their inner life experiences the rest of society, what organizes society, laws, prohibitions. I would say it's from the moment we start expressing ourselves that it becomes political.
Has there been a misunderstanding with you about the question of decency? You've been labeled indecent.
That's been going on for a long time. But maybe it's also because people had a problem with women talking freely about themselves.
But let's go further on this. If you chose yourself as a main character, wasn't it, on the contrary, out of modesty so as not to involve others?
This is an idea which interests me a lot. I have no issue revealing myself in writing, but it's always been a problem for me, although a bit less now, to speak about myself on television or in public.
Whereas in writing, I've had complete freedom, all possibilities. For me, writing is fundamentally something which is immaterial, and it materializes inside each reader. And so for me as a person, I don't exist.
Another big subject. You've used the term class defector, someone who moves from a poor social class to a more affluent one. That's what happened in your case. You were born in a relatively poor family in Yvetot, Normandy, and you ended up, thanks to school, lifting yourself up socially to become a leading professor of literature. How do you respond to those who say that once you've changed class, you are no longer qualified to speak about your class of origin?
You no longer live in the same world, that's obvious. But there's at least, it's the case for me, I think, this early world which is always present. It's here in my way of looking at the world. That's why spontaneously, during the Yellow Vest crisis, I said to myself when I heard the French president say, there are those who are something and those who are nothing. How shameful it was to say that. And so that's it. I felt about this very strongly. And that is indeed how you can be in two worlds at once.
Your books were recently translated into Creole. They are being read widely across the world. How do you feel about what people think about your books abroad?
It's the biggest satisfaction one can have because it overcomes the language barrier. I know this all too well because I speak English very poorly. I know a bit of Italian and Spanish. What's more, as a writer, I have a relationship with words that's almost carnal, ancient. So it's great. That's real globalization.
Thank you, Annie Ernaux.
That's Nobel Prize winning writer Annie Ernaux speaking to France 24's Fatimata Wane. Next, we head to the French port city of Marseille, where the annual Arts Festival is underway. From mid-June to mid-July, it showcases dozens of artists from a mix of genres, including dance, theater, music, and film, an eclectic display of the city's vibrance and diversity. Encore's Loïc Chalavon takes us on a tour.
In Marseille, you talk to people on the street.
There are lots of different communities here. It makes you want to try things out, to experiment.
There's always a view that shows us something different. I find it changes a lot visually.
I often work in Marseille, so I feel a bit at home here, let's say. Let's try something out now. Let's walk, and when we bump into people, we're going to say hello.
Feroz tries to bring people together through games, eye contact and movement. He's part of the lineup of this 28th edition of the Marseille Festival, Dancing in Groove, by choreographer Bintou Dembele. But he also wanted to organise an open-air dance workshop.
We're here in this park. It was organised beforehand, but people are joining in. They come and ask, what are we doing? Are we dancing? Yes, we are, but more importantly, we're creating a community.
It's great to be here in the park with a diverse group of all ages and backgrounds.
It was fun. We had a lot of fun. We sweated a lot. Everyone let loose.
Through its eclectic programme, the Marseille Festival addresses social issues, such as mental health and racism, two themes at the heart of Mathieu Barère's film Diary of a Black Woman.
Le noir est de nouveau à la mode. Pas pour sa vivacité d'esprit et son éloquence, mais pour sa capacité à rentrer dans les rangs et à dépenser vilement son argent.
Barère is a friend of the documentary's protagonist, Rose. He was also her psychiatric aide for 2 years, and he drew on her diaries to produce the film.
Rose
is incredibly at ease with language. She knows how to play with the different nuances. I think it's her form of ongoing creation.
Continue, en fait.
Moi, j'aime cette expression. Speak your truth. Parle ce qui te concerne, quoi. Raconte ta réalité.
At the renowned theatre La Criée, Ugandan band The Waka Stars takes the stage, or at least Rachel does, with her 5 brothers and sisters connected by video link. They tell the story of their lives in Wakaliga, a poor district of the capital Kampala, and it paints a picture of a Ugandan youth thirsty for emancipation.
Our goal is basically to change lives of different children and to inspire many young kids like us to do their talent. Because in Uganda, talents, many parents, they just avoid talents of their children and they don't like their children to perform their talents.
The Waka Stars switch between song, political satire, and even kung fu choreography. There's no limit to their creativity.
I
found it interesting. With Rachel's presence on stage and the digital setup, they deconstruct all of our codes of theatre. They challenge our aesthetic norms.
That is, after all, the aim of the Marseille Festival, to shake things up and celebrate artistic diversity.
And we close out this edition with another festival, this one taking place here in Paris. The Festival Paris l'été, or Summertime Paris Festival, brings performance and art installations to outdoor spaces in and around the city, including the esplanades of the Notre Dame Cathedral and City Hall. If you're in the French capital, do keep an eye out. We can leave you with images of some of the groups who will be performing. Thanks so much for watching. There's more news coming up on France 24 right after this.
Worldviews.